Choking is one of the most frustrating experiences in any FPS game. You're so close to winning, so close. Yet then you have to watch in excruciating slow motion as the rounds tip out of favor and as the mood goes from confidence to disbelief to resignation. Which is why I will be going over the biggest cause of choking I've observed and how to beat it. Keep in mind that these tips did work for me, but you may need something different. That is up to your own judgment. Hello everyone, my name is Achax and let's get right into it. In the discussion of choking, I always hear about overconfidence. It's on the right track, but based on what I've observed, it's not the root problem. Without a doubt, the single biggest mistake that I've noticed that leads to choking is shifting expectations. Players shift their expectations of their own gameplay to match their opponents. This typically means that you have a certain standard for how well you play, positioning, aim, mental economy, etc. But in the context of choking, as you start to get more and more ahead, you allow the quality of your gameplay to fall. Since the opponents aren't that good, your brain decides that you don't have to play too well either. Whether that's from overconfidence or laziness or something else doesn't really matter, because the core problem is that playing significantly better than your opponents is what earned you a lead in the first place. So by bringing your level of play down to meet or go below them, you turn what should be an easy win into a very close game. Let's say that your team is playing at an 8 out of 10 and your opponents are only playing at a 4 out of 10. Due to this, you're beating them significantly. If you allow your gameplay to fall to a 4 or a 3, then the game becomes close, because even though you're capable of an 8, it doesn't matter. You're allowing your gameplay to fall to the level of the opponents. So the root of choking is not obscure or abstract in this case. It's concrete, and it typically happens in two ways. Number one, players allow their decision making to go downhill. This is where risk-reward enters the conversation, and it's really crucial because there's two ways to see an advantage. Let's say you have a 5v3 numbers advantage on defense. Typically, the process for winning a round is to gain an advantage and leverage it. And so a really smart player might go, okay, we have a 2-player advantage. Let's make sure that all else being equal, when the teams end up fighting, we have more players active in the fight and we use that higher overall damage to win the round. And then on the flip side, you're going to have a lot of players who see advantages as disposable. So they're going to go, okay, we're up 2 players. If I rush and I go down, that means we'll still be ahead. Then they run forward to take a 1v3 and lose. One might expect they'd lose that fight a fairly high percentage of the time. In this situation, not only has this player taken an awful fight that they wouldn't have taken under other circumstances, but they were also on defense, so now they've given up map control, which the opponents can leverage to get back into the game and eventually maybe win. The bar that people usually use for where advantages stop being disposable is where their team stops being ahead, and it makes sense that a player might choke a lot if every time they get an advantage, they throw it away until the odds of winning are roughly 50-50 again. Number 2, players let their gameplay become unfocused and sloppy. One of the great things about playing with better opponents is they force you to be on your A game. By contrast, worse opponents offer no such motivation. Many players accept this open invitation to slack by letting their focus wane, holding angles more loosely, and just generally having very sloppy footwork and aim. In short, they view mechanical advantages as disposable too. The logic is that they don't quote-unquote need these advantages to win fights, and that's technically true. But just as in the last case, discarding advantages can quickly drop the overall level of gameplay. For example, if a player starts missing more shots, it makes it easier to hit them, more opponents will tend to beat them, and the win ratio of their fights starts slipping. It makes sense that a player might choke a lot if they throw away extra advantages until they need all the ones they have left. Unlike in decision making, I haven't observed a common hard line where players stop considering advantages disposable. However, perhaps more troubling, many players who let their gameplay decline seem to struggle to bring it back up again once they've realized that they have to. That's something to be aware of if it affects you. In sum, shifting expectations leads players to dispose advantages, allowing their overall gameplay to fall to meet their opponents until the odds are 50-50 again or worse. This generates the perfect environment to fumble an advantage, choke, and lose. How do we not do that? Well, now that we are aware of shifting expectations, we can choose not to let them fall. It's not difficult, at least not mechanically, but it can take up focus. Focus is better off elsewhere. This is something we want to automate as much as possible. If you're really struggling, it might be helpful to focus on something specific that you usually do in practice when you're trying to have very efficient, clean gameplay. For me, it's crosshair placement. For you, it could be something totally different, but whatever it is, that way, instead of writing, I must not let my gameplay fall over and over again on a mental chalkboard until the end of the round, there's something constructive to make patient, higher level gameplay come more naturally. It also helps me to value efficiency. Everyone wants to win, but if I'm really trying to move up the ladder, I'm going to set a goal to win as cleanly as possible. That means taking the first opportunity to close out the game that is presented, instead of trying to go sheriff only for the last round. With this, a player can often stamp out any chance of a comeback before it even gets started. And that is the most common reason I've seen behind choking in FPS games. In hindsight, it's pretty simple. Don't let your gameplay fall to your opponent's level. Close out games when the opportunity presents itself. There are some things related to choking I didn't cover in this video. Another common cause of choking is a bit more abstract and has to do with pressure and confidence. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. That's going to be it for today. I hope you found some value in this video. Best of luck, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next one.